you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I have to say it's always a friendly visit with Dr. Inman and the health team when I come here. It really doesn't feel like a health clinic visit because they're such a friendly and helpful full group, and I feel very fortunate to be under their care. So I guess I was invited here to talk for about 10 minutes or so on my experience of living and growing with ankylosing spondylitis. And I think I've been lucky in many ways, which has helped me manage my disease, luck, and a certain degree of control. I've always taken a certain degree of control to do what I can to manage the disease with the things I could do and empower myself to. And the other bit is a degree of acceptance, that sometimes nature calls the shots, and accepting the limitations you have, working with them, and not fretting too much, not being too much of a perfectionist, that sometimes bad news comes your way and there are ways of slowly dealing with it. I'm in my newly in my 40s now, and I've always said to my friends, my 20s and 30s were the decades where I wanted control over everything, and in my 40s I'm going to work better on acceptance, and I think along with that is forgetfulness, because I know I nearly forgot to come this evening without having a lot of friendly reminders by the staff here. So I guess I'll start at the very beginning. When I was diagnosed, I was 16 years old when I was diagnosed with AS, and I was one of the fortunate ones. I'm thinking of Dr. Inman's slide, where I think I was diagnosed in probably within the first year of my disease by my family doctor. So I was playing a lot of sports. I was in high school, and his initial thought was that it was a sports-related injury. I tweaked a muscle. I was having hip and pain in the buttocks. My mother's always said I'm a pain in the butt, so it was nothing really new to me. So he prescribed NSAIDs for a couple weeks. I felt better, came off the NSAIDs, and a couple weeks later the same pain came again, and so we went back for another round, and it was the same thing, repeating that. So he ordered a blood test and found that I was positive for one of the markers for the HLA-B27, and that's about as technical as I'll get because I know I'm to talk about my experience, and sent me to a rheumatologist right away with the suspected diagnosis of AS, and the rheumatologist confirmed that. So that's the luck part of it. I was diagnosed very early. I was referred to a physiotherapist as a part of that management, and when I was young, I did my exercises probably nearly daily, and I know Chris and Laura would be happy to hear that. And to be honest, I don't know why I did. I just built it into part of my routine, and I did it, and I think I credit my posture, my abilities now very much to that early management. When I started reading about the disease and how before all this knowledge that much of which was presented today, as we age, many people become fused in a less functional position, and I think I'm probably nearly fused, but in almost a perfectly functional position, and I haven't felt many limitations in my life because of it. So exercise was a big role. I continued being active in sports, and I felt I wasn't all that limited, except from time to time I felt awkward out there. I got sore a little more easily, and I had to cope with being maybe half a step slower. I was a bit competitive in sports, and I was maybe half a step slower than everyone else, so there was the beginnings of acceptance creeping into my life there. I played, and this is something that's always made my family doctor, Dr. Chin, he practices Peter Chin in Mississauga, and Dr. Inman would probably cringe at this, but I played hockey until my late 20s, and in fact in my mid-20s I played full contact ice hockey, and as a hockey player I wasn't a bad stick handler, but I was always a step slower, and when your defending players know that, they hit you every chance you get, so there were always moments where I was plastered on the ice, and thinking back, it probably wasn't the best thing for me to do, but I got away with it, and at the time I enjoyed it too much to give it up. I think the biggest change, so I went on a number of different NSAIDs, finally landed on meloxicam, being the one that worked the best for me. And the one thing that changed was a bit of a more drastic change, because up until then I felt I was managing the disease well. I was exercising, maybe not every day. I was busy with school and with jobs and paying my tuition, and so I'd exercise perhaps 3 or 4 times a week, but it was definitely enough to keep me feeling loose and limber. I started feeling just a more oftentimes a pain in my right hip. Just a small pain, mild pain, and it didn't really affect me a lot, and I didn't think much of it except for one of my biannual checkups with my rheumatologist at the time, Dr. Corin at Sunnybrook. And I actually asked her, we had a great checkup, and she was happy with all my numbers and all my measurements and my range of motion, and I just, out of suspicion, asked her, I should say as a background is I took grad school. I did a master's degree in medical research and played hockey during that time and got injured and saw physiotherapists on and off. And there was a point where I was career hunting, and the physiotherapist I saw at Sunnybrook had a student. We had a great interaction, and I started asking them, what it took to become a physiotherapist. Discovered I had all the credits, and I put the paperwork together that summer. I think I was 23 or 24 at the time, and got accepted to physiotherapy school. So my disease actually guided me into my profession now. Now in physio school, and shortly after, as I started working in my career, is sort of catches up to where I was feeling a little bit of a tweak in my hip, and I suppose that's why I'm a little bit more analytical about my disease right now, because I do have that knowledge and capability of being a little bit self-analytical. And so Dr. Corin ordered an x-ray, and honestly neither her nor myself expected anything. We thought it would just be out of curiosity, and I came back with my right hip joint being bone on bone. And so at that point she said a referral to a surgeon is the next step, and at that point we explored the biologic. They were probably being tested, but fairly new, and they were a fairly new kid on the block, and I didn't know much about it. I think that's the only point in my life where I was a little down about things, a little bit scared. I was young, I was 33 at the time, thinking I would have a hip replacement and have perhaps several revisions, because they all have a warranty and don't last forever. So I put off that decision for a while. I just said, it's not that painful, and the knowledge changes things a bit, but I'm still managing. And I probably put it off a few months more than I should have, because by the time I got my surgery, by the time I agreed to it, and then it wasn't too long a wait. I had my surgery here by Dr. Rod Davey here, and had a wonderful experience. Don't line up for it, but it was a wonderful experience as far as a hip replacement can go. At the point in time, I would say 3 months leading into the surgery, I was hobbling around with a cane and could probably go only a block or two without needing to rest because of the pain. And my pre-surgical x-ray, it was completely bone on bone with all this rough stuff around there, which it was a hip in pretty bad shape. The left hip also had some mild disease. It wasn't bone on bone, but there was some narrowing of the gap, and we kind of expected the left hip might need a surgery, perhaps in a year or two from that point. But here's where the luck comes back again. It's been 7 years and it hasn't changed to that date. Perhaps the biologics, because I was well into the biologic treatment by then, have a role in that. But I've been managing it okay, and the hip has worked okay as well, so it wasn't as traumatic an experience. I had a wonderful roommate while I stayed in the hospital. We laughed and joked the whole time and had a great time. And in fact, a young girl who had a hip, I guess the human version of hip dysplasia she was born with, who was actually younger than me, had a surgery on her right hip the same day I did, and stayed just the room next to us. So she and I got a little bit competitive as to who could walk the fastest and who could get free of their walker or cane the fastest. And we still remain in touch, which is kind of neat. So I guess I'm probably running out of time. I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions either afterwards or now. But I think in summary, there's a lot we can do. I mean, I still do exercise. I guess I'll talk a little bit about that. I do have a busy job. I have 2 beagles, and they keep me busy. I have a lovely girlfriend who likes to celebrate 6-month anniversaries, and that keeps me busy. So I still find time to exercise, and what I found the way to do that nowadays is, with hopefully warmer weather coming sooner rather than later, I plan to cycle to work. And so the cardio exercise is low impact. I work a fair enough distance that cycling is realistic, and so integrating it into your life so you can also get the dogs out and get groceries and do your errands is a big part of how I can maintain that. The stretches, I have to say, I think are crucial. Like I'm going to throw a bit of a sales pitch, but I know it because I feel it. I'm not able to do them daily, but if I go through a busy spell where I don't do them, I really feel it. And I find even if you're only able to once or twice a week to spend half an hour stretching, the way it improves the management along with the medications, the way I feel, and in terms of the long term of maintaining what range of motion and maximizing what your range of motion is, it makes life a heck of a lot more comfortable. So I'd be sure to at least once or twice a week go through a decent routine of exercise, a lot of the exercises that Chris went through. So I think taking some degree of power and control over your illness is probably the #1 most important thing. Having a good medical team, I'd say, is tied with that, and you are really a part of the team, taking control of what you can in the illness, accepting what comes along your way. I think even for your mental and emotional health and balance is important to realize you can't be perfect. And sometimes a little bit of luck and good fortune follows you too, and I think I've had a bit of that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much.